In this guide, you'll draw a 2D tile map using rectangles, label the tiles with coordinates using text, draw a player on the tile map using an oval, and finally allow player movement on the map using the arrow keys. All of this will be done using Python and Tkinter. Thank you for your time, and let's get into the video. Most 2D tile maps are made of rectangles or squares arranged in a grid. The key is that every tile in the grid has the same width and height. Once you can calculate those two numbers, you can draw the entire map. To calculate the tile size, you need two things. One, the total width and height of the canvas or screen, and two, the number of rows and columns in your tile map. So let's walk through an example. We'll assume that we have a screen width of 1920, a screen height of 1080, and a tile map size of 7 rows by 7 columns. The first step here is to divide the screen height by the number of rows. So we would do 1080 divided by 7. So each tile is about 154 pixels tall. And so this ends up giving us 7 rows that perfectly fill the screen vertically. The second step is to divide the screen width by the number of columns. So we would do 1920 divided by 7. So each tile is roughly 274 pixels wide. This gives us 7 columns that perfectly fill the screen horizontally along with our rows. Let's start coding by creating the root window. This is the main Tkinter window that will hold our map. So up here we'll do from Tkinter, import everything. Let me make this a little bit bigger for you guys. There you go. And then we'll create our root window class. So we'll do class root. We're going to have it inherit from Tkinter's TK class. Define init, then we'll do super init, so it'll inherit all of the attributes and method from the TK class. Then we'll just go ahead and make it full screen with self.state, pass in zoomed as a string. Okay, now down here we'll do if underscore name is equal to underscore main. And inside of here, we'll do root is equal to root. So we'll initialize our root class. And then we'll start our root main loop. So root.main loop. All right, save and run that. All right, and as you can see, you should have your full screen Tkinter window when you run this code. All right, next we'll create a canvas to draw the map on. The canvas will fill the entire window and have a black border so we can clearly see its edges. So inside of our root class, we'll just do self.canvas is equal to canvas. And we'll set the parent to self or the root class. And then we'll set the border's color with highlight background. And then we'll make it black. And then we'll set the border's thickness with highlight thickness, and we'll set that equal to 5. And then now we have to display the canvas, so we'll do self.canvas.pack, and we'll set fill, if I can spell it right, fill equal to both, so it'll fill both the Y and X axis. And then we'll set expand equal to 1 or true, so that whenever the root window shrinks or expands, the canvas will shrink and expand with it. All right, so now if you run the code, you should have your canvas here with the black border around it. And you can also resize the window and the canvas size will change with it. The next step is to draw the map tiles on the canvas using rectangles. So we want the map to adapt to the size of the canvas, so we're going to use something called event binding. Event binding is when you tell a Tkinter program to run a function when something happens, like a widget resizing, a key being pressed, or a mouse button being clicked. So at the end of the root class, we're going to use the configure event to detect when the window changes size, and when it does, we'll update the map. So down here at the bottom of our root class, we'll just do self.bind. We'll use the configure event here. Then we'll do self.update_map. The binding refers to this update map function that doesn't exist yet, so we're going to go ahead and create that now. So we'll add it as a method to the root class. So we'll do define update underscore map self event is equal to none. And then we'll just put pass underneath there for now. We don't need to use the event object for anything right now, so we set it equal to none by default. All right, so each time the map is updated, we want to clear the canvas. So underneath our update map method here, we'll do self.canvas.delete, and then we'll pass in all, so it deletes all items on the canvas. Okay, so before we draw the tiles, we need to make sure the canvas has the correct width and height. And sometimes when you ask for them, the canvas will return outdated values. So to avoid this, we'll use the update underscore idle task method. So underneath here, we'll do self.canvas.update underscore idle task. All right, so after clearing the canvas, we want to draw the tiles onto it. So let's add another method to the root class called draw underscore tiles. All right, so define draw underscore tiles self, and then we'll just put pass underneath there for now. So in order to draw the tiles at the right size and in the right location, we need the canvas's width and height. So we're going to go ahead and get that with canvas underscore width is equal to self.canvas.winfo underscore width, and then canvas underscore height is equal to self.canvas.winfo underscore height. Now before continuing, we need to set our desired map size. So back inside of the root class, near the top, we'll add an attribute called map underscore size. So up here, I'll just do self.map underscore size is equal to 10. Now back inside of draw underscore tiles, we can calculate the width and height for each map tile. So down here, we'll do tile underscore width is equal to canvas underscore width divided by self.map underscore size. Then we'll do tile underscore height is equal to canvas underscore height divided by self.map underscore size. Next, we have to iterate through each Y in the map. So we'll do for Y in range, self.map underscore size. Then we have to iterate through each X that's inside of the Y. So then we'll do for each X in range, self.map underscore size. Now we can begin the process of drawing a rectangle for each tile. First, we have to calculate where the top left corner of each rectangle should be and where the bottom right corner should be. So we'll do we'll do Tx is equal to X times tile underscore width. Then we'll do Ty is equal to Y times tile underscore height. Then we'll do Tx1 is equal to Tx plus tile underscore width. Then Ty1 is equal to Ty plus tile underscore height. Okay, so now to actually draw the rectangles, we have to call the canvas's create rectangle method and pass in the coordinates we just calculated. So down here, we'll do self.canvas.create underscore rectangle here, and then we'll do Tx, Ty, and then Tx1 and Ty1. All right, so now finally, just to make the tiles look a little bit better, we want the width to match the canvas's border width. So we'll do width is equal to 5. Okay, so now inside of update underscore map, we want to actually call draw underscore tiles. So we do self.draw underscore tiles, like so. All right, so now we're going to run our code. All right, so now if you run the code, you should see your tiles on the canvas like this. So we're now going to display the coordinates for each tile. The coordinates are going to be displayed as text, so we'll be using the create text method. And that method works similar to how the create rectangle does, except instead we just pass in one XY coordinate instead of 2. And that coordinate is going to be in the middle of the tile. All right, so at the end of our draw methods here, right underneath our create underscore rectangle method, we'll do self.canvas.create underscore text. And then we'll do tx plus tile underscore width divided by 2, and then ty plus tile underscore height divided by 2. And then the actual text that's going to be displayed is text is equal to f string for formatting. And then we'll do x comma y inside of parentheses. Okay. Then we're going to put a comma behind that, and underneath there we'll define a font. So we'll do font is equal to Arial. And then I set it to size 15. All right, so if you run the code, you should see that each tile is labeled with coordinates here. All right, so next let's draw the player on the map as a circle. So inside of the root class, we're going to define the player's current XY position on the map. So we'll just do self.player underscore x is equal to 0, self.player underscore y is also equal to 0. All right, so next we'll add a draw player method to the root class down here. So underneath draw underscore tiles, we'll just do define draw underscore player self, put pass for right now. Okay, so the player is going to be drawn inside of the tile. So we'll need to calculate the tile's width and height. So we'll do tile underscore width is equal to self.canvas.winfo underscore width divided by self.map underscore size. And then we'll do tile underscore height is equal to self.canvas.winfo underscore height divided by self.map underscore size. Okay. Then we'll create a player scale variable that controls the player size. So we'll do player underscore scale, and I'll set mine equal to 0.5. Okay. All right, so now we're going to either use the tile width or the tile height, whichever is smaller, and multiply it by the player scale to calculate the player size. So we'll do player underscore size is equal to min tile underscore width tile underscore height. So it'll choose which one of those is the smallest, and then it'll multiply that by player underscore scale. Okay. Then we'll calculate the radius, and this will be used later when we calculate the XY coordinates for the player circle's bounding box. So we'll do radius is equal to player underscore size divided by 2. Okay. All right, so now we need to get the center of whatever tile the player is actually in. So we'll do CX is equal to self.player, player underscore x times tile underscore width plus tile underscore width divided by 2. Then we'll do cy is equal to self.player underscore y times tile underscore height plus tile underscore height divided by 2. Okay. Now we can calculate the bounding box, or the top left corner and the right bottom corner for the player, and display it. So we'll do x is equal to cx minus radius, y is equal to cy minus radius. Then we'll do x1 is equal to cx plus radius, and then y1 is equal to cy plus radius. Then we'll actually create the oval, or the circle that represents the player, with self.canvas.create underscore oval, and then pass in the coordinates. So x, y, x1, y1. Okay. And we'll also make the oval blue. So we'll do fill is equal to blue, or you can put whatever color you want there. Then we're going to tag it here. So we'll do tag player. Okay. All right, so each time we call draw underscore player, we want to delete the player circle if one already exists. So at the top here, we can do the following. Now that we added the player tag to the oval, at the top here, we can now do self.canvas.delete player. Okay. All right, so and now we're going to call draw underscore player inside of our update map function here. So underneath draw tiles, we do self dot draw underscore player. Okay. All right, so now if you run the code, let's see what we get. All right, so if you run the code, you see that our player is in 0, 0 here. The player is this blue circle here. And so now let's see what happens whenever we change the player coordinates. So right now the player is at 0, 0, and now let's do something like, I don't know, let's do 5, 3, all right? All right, now as you can see, the player is in 5, 3 now. And I'll show you one more example. We'll do 1, 9, and run that. All right, so now the player is in 1, 9. So you should be able to change the player coordinates and the player will show up in the correct tile. Now that we have the player circle on the map, let's move it around using the arrow keys. So, all right, so now we're going to have to add some bindings to each of the arrow keys so that whenever they are pressed, Tkinter knows to move the player. So we'll do this in the root class underneath the configure binding from earlier. So underneath this right here, we'll do self.bind and then left for the left arrow key. And then for the function, we'll do self.move underscore left. And then we'll do the same thing for right. And change this to move underscore right. And then we'll do the same thing for up. Move underscore up, and then finally we'll do down and then change this to move underscore down. Okay, all right, so next we have to create each of these move methods that we just added to the code here. All right, so we'll do it at the top so I won't have to worry about scrolling down so much. So we'll do define move underscore left self, and then again we'll do event is equal to none. Okay, and then we'll just do pass for right now. All right, so in order to move the player left or west, we just have to subtract the X position by 1. If the player is already at the X position of 0 and tries to move left, their new X position will become -1, moving them off the map. To prevent this, we'll check to see if the player X is greater than 0 before moving. Then we'll modify player underscore X and draw the player at the new tile position. So again, we have to check and make sure that the player isn't in a tile that can move them off the map whenever they move left. So we'll do if self.player underscore X is greater than 0. So as long as player underscore X is greater than 0, then we can move the player left. So player underscore X minus equal to 1, and then we'll redraw the player. So self.draw underscore player. To move the player right or east, we have to add 1 to the X position. But if the player is already at the right edge and tries to move right, their new X position will move them off the map. So again, we'll only move the player right if player underscore X is less than the map size -1. All right, so here we'll do define move underscore right self event is equal to none. And then we'll do if self.player underscore X is less than self.map underscore size -1. Then we'll do self.player underscore X plus equal to 1, and then we'll redraw the player. Okay. All right, so to move the player up or north, you'll subtract 1 from the Y position. Like before, if Y is already at 0 and you subtract 1, the player will move off of the map. And we can only move the player up if player underscore Y is greater than 0. So now we'll do define move underscore up self event is equal to none. If self.player underscore Y is greater than 0, self.player underscore Y minus equal to 1, then we'll redraw the player. So self.draw underscore player. Okay, so to move the player south, you add 1 to the Y position. But if the player is already at the bottom edge, they'll move off the map if they go down any further. So before moving, we have to check if the player underscore y is less than the map size -1. Okay, so now for move down, find move underscore down, self event is equal to none. All right, so we have to check and make sure that the player can't move off the map. So we'll do if self.player underscore y is less than self.map underscore size -1. So if that is true, then they can finally move down. So we do self.player underscore y plus equal to 1. Then we'll do self.draw underscore player. Okay. All right, so now let's run this code. Let me see. You should be able to freely move the player on the map using the arrow keys without moving past the map borders. And that's pretty much it for this tutorial. You now have a working 2D tile map built entirely with Python and Tkinter. Thank you for your time and thank you for watching.